Time never waits. It delivers all equally to the same end. Time is the master of our fate, the inescapable end that awaits us all. Time as a concept has fascinated humanity since its inception, explored in media for centuries, with particular effort spiking with the advent of the movie industry. It has spawned an almost hysterical mass of equal parts horrifying and magnificent media, from the subtle and oftentimes darkly symbolic Groundhog Day and Interstellar, to the questionably derivative Blair Witch and Open Graves. Time, and the potential to break it, has been a persistent mainstay in fiction. The feeling of being trapped in time, either in an incessant loop unable to break the cycle, or simply immortalised, has spawned genre-defining classics. Time, or the absence of it, is the underlying creeping theme that permeates zombie and vampire literature, ageless, death-defying beasts. The fear of the unknown is often to blame for the atmosphere of horror, but I doubt this is all there is to it. The Walking Dead represents death incarnate, yes, but it's also indicative of another theory. A moment in time frozen in place, doomed to remain unending, infinitely perpetuating, for all eternity. Oxenfree is a supernaturally themed, story-driven adventure game set on a fictional island steeped in unease, obscurity, and a dark and dismal history. 70 years previously, a tragic incident of friendly fire sunk the USS Kanaloa, killing 97 passengers, 85 sailors, and 12 civilians. The island's armed forces history and the abandoned fort once home to a military school has since been opened up to the public, completed with a gift shop and routine tours, and a mysterious, reclusive elderly woman named Margaret Adler, whose manor house is permanently gated off. The island is blanketed in mystery, but that isn't why you're there. You play Alex, a teenage high school girl who has recently acquired a brand new stepfather, coerced into visiting the island by her best friend. The journey to Edwards Island is a time-honoured tradition, one that the students have upheld for many years. The intent is to drink, chat, and eventually pass out. On the journey with you are wisecracking Ren, your best friend, somber Jonas, your new stepbrother, awkward but kind Nona, and the tirelessly insufferable Clarissa. There were supposed to be others too, but, well, they seem conspicuously absent, perhaps put off by Ren's burning enthusiasm, or something else entirely. It isn't for us to speculate. Your previous trips to the island have been eventful only in a high school fashion, but this year is a little different. This year, Ren wants to show you something cool, and he won't take no for an answer. On Beacon Beach, there is a cave that descends deep beneath the earth. It is said that the cave emits strange frequencies, and lo and behold, when you, Jonas, and Ren test the radio you brought with you, you find to your surprise that the signals emerge. Seemingly consisting of a catastrophic mess of distorted voices and unearthly sounds, they entice Jonas further into the cave in an effort to solve the mystery. There you find a quietly innocuous triangle of light hovering over a crystalline lake. You take out your radio and tune in. The triangle grows, spreading like webbing across the very fabric of reality. You might be reluctant to continue, but Jonas won't let you stop. You grit your teeth and keep tuning. Suddenly the triangle engulfs the cave, and before you lies a vision, a gaping maw into another world entirely. And from that maw, souls pour forth into the world. On the surface, Oxenfree is a ghost story. The spirits of those lost on the USS Kanaloa, collectively known as the Sunken, have seemingly merged into a vicious and malevolent entity hell-bent on escaping the watery tomb by any means possible. They yearn for freedom after being ripped from their own lives by a sudden tragic event, and so have learnt how to inhabit the bodies of living beings, slowly eclipsing their soul. The thought of being superseded from the inside out, of having your soul and your consciousness be slowly overwritten by an external force, is not an uncommon one, occasionally coupled with the body horror genre of media, particularly where parasitism is involved. It can be seen in media ranging from The Last of Us to the invasion of the Body Snatchers, from Buffy the Vampire Slayer to traditional tales of ghostly possession. It is, like time, a subject that has fascinated the world, and whether there is a realistic truth to it or not, has resulted in timelessly hideous stories like the Amityville Horror and The Exorcist. Even today, with all of humanity's advanced technology and the lack of evidence supporting events detailed in these sorts of stories, we often cling to the supernatural and the unexplained, whether as a source of entertainment or genuine interest. Like zombies and vampires, Frankenstein and Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, the horror of the unknown and the intrigue we draw from it is one of humanity's enduring passions. Oxenfree's gameplay is not quite so grandiose as its premise. It consists primarily of three things: walking, talking, and tuning. You explore the island most often in the company of one of your school friends, and engage in frequent bouts of dialogue. The choices are plentiful and nicely varied, and have an impact on the way future dialogue pans out, as well as impacting your relationships with those involved in the game's conclusion, who you choose to visit first when you wake up after the incident in the cave, who you side with in a peacocking contest, and even your choice of words can and does impact the way characters see you. It is possible to end the game with everyone going their separate ways, just as much as it is possible to end with everyone becoming a tight-knit group, bonded by their shared trauma. The tuning element of the gameplay comes down to the way you use the game's radio, and later upgraded wave-assisted lock version, to locate signals and anomalies. There are no puzzles to speak of. You simply tune the radio to the correct frequency when the game suggests that you should. This primarily consists of identifying collectibles in the form of rock piles, like those seen outside the offending cave, unlocking WAL doors and purging the spirits from your friends' bodies during moments of possession. There are also occasions where you need to rotate the mouse or control stick in time to a piece of music to ensure it plays at the correct speed, and breaks the temporary loop that you are stuck in. And that's it. That is the gameplay of Oxenfree in its entirety. Like Gone Home and Everybody's Gone to the Rapture, and countless other narrative-driven efforts, this is an interactive novel more than it is a video game. Personally, I don't mind. As long as the story is well written, I can sit back, relax, and enjoy the story as it unfolds. And Oxenfree's story is fascinating. Not only does it unfold at a perfect, time-sensitive pace, but it is also well written, sharp, witty, and greatly enhanced by the spectacular voice actors. There is a degree of realism that's difficult to capture in games, and in narrative-driven games it is especially important that this element be tuned to perfection. I enjoyed Life is Strange, but the dated and somewhat clunky dialogue could be distracting. Gone Home solved this issue by being set in the early 90s, and both Soma and Amnesia: The Dark Descent resolve their differences by being set in wildly different centuries. The occasionally pejorative term for games like these is walking simulator, a term most frequently assigned to games whose core mechanic is, well, walking. With the rise in the indie scene, and the ease of access to tools that can assist in crafting an interactive narrative, walking simulators have risen in visibility and popularity over the past 5 years. I'm not in a position to argue as to whether they're a completely new craze, since I can't recall off the top of my head whether walking simulators, or something similar, were a feature of the 90s or early 2000s. What I will say is that if done right, a game with very little gameplay, beyond moving from point A to point B, can still be an enjoyable, emotional experience. I realise Oxenfree came out some time ago now, and this video is a little behind the times, but hear me out. I didn't come here to review this game or defend walking simulators. I came here to ponder, after finding the narrative to be one of the more interesting, interwoven stories I've experienced in a while. Time loops and multiple realities have been explored before, with varying degrees of success, but Oxenfree's interpretation, while not flawless, was certainly succinct. As you explore the island and speak to the ghostly denizens, you discover that the tragic events of the sinking of the USS Kanaloa resulted in a temporal rift, damning the lost souls to an eternal existence of torment and misery. Wallowing in their fury for decades, the spirits have all but fused into one heaving, insidious mass of wrath and bitterness, their names long forgotten and all purpose gone save for the yearning to be free. They want to escape. They want to walk the earth once more. They may be dead, but they are far from gone. Oxenfree's presentation brings a startling life and clarity to the horror of the beyond. The spirits are not caught in an afterlife, they are literally trapped between the fabrics of reality. And if you wish to interpret it that way, it can be considered that they are caught in a time loop. The moment they realised they were being fired upon, and the moment death caught up with them. Imagine being trapped in those short few seconds for years, then decades. Imagine the pulsating, ugly rage that would envelop you when the only existence you have is a repeating loop of the final moments of your life. The more you think about the spirits you're trying to run from, the more you sympathise with them. And when you stop to think about it, is this not the fate in store for our main character? No matter your choices, your first run of the game will always end with the cycle repeating itself. Alex saves her friends, returns to the cave and confronts the ghosts. She can choose to let them keep Clarissa, to wear her as an unfeeling skin suit for the remainder of her existence. Or she can close the rift and return the ghosts to their hellish realm. It does not matter what you do. As the ending sequence plays out and the choices you made are laid before you, time skips, jumps, and loops, and you find yourself back at the beginning, preparing to board the ferry to the island, doomed to repeat the cycle of the last 12 hours of your life over and over again. We don't know whether the first time we play the game is the first time Alex has. During your New Game Plus run of the game, the spirits will draw attention to the repetition, announcing, but who's to say they are talking to Alex? There's a degree to which the game can be considered to be breaking the fourth wall, but there's also a degree to which I'll admit I'm beginning to read far too much into it. Regardless, what fascinates me about this extremely simplistic, almost cartoony game is the way it weaves its narrative between characters, between realities, between worlds. A game that can be interpreted in so many ways is absolutely worthy of telling a many-world story. Is this a game about parallel worlds or parallel realities? Is it naught but a simple ghost world versus the world of mankind? Or is it vastly more complex than that? Is each iteration of Alex just another strand in an enormous, cosmic cobweb? It is possible to break the loop, but only for one Alex in one world. It is also possible to change the past significantly enough that the tragic event that claimed her brother Michael's life never happens, and thus you completely rewrite history, but again, only for one Alex. Time will always loop for your Alex. Time will always loop for you. The real tragedy is that Alex, your Alex, will never know whether or not she has changed reality, whether another Alex in another world heeded her advice, whether another Alex in another world never lost her brother, never met Jonas, never fell prey to the call of the unknown. Oxenfree is a game about tragedy, about loss, and about the lengths to which one would go to break free of the infinite cycle. It is a reminder that death can be just around the corner, but more importantly, it is a reminder that time is never on your side. It is a juxtaposition of the normal versus the paranormal, of time, despair, and penitence. It is a cautionary tale of the insatiable curiosity that afflicts mankind, and is at times darkly comic. But more importantly, it is an exploration of the pressures of greed and wrath, desperation and despair. It is a veritable Greek tragedy, a tale of hamartia. Alex is a tragic hero, the character between these two extremes, that of a man who is not eminently good and just, yet whose misfortune is brought about not by vice or depravity, but by some error or frailty. Her hubris and her willingness to explore, to impress and to dramatise, has brought her to this end. Alex's downfall is a plummeting spiral of her own doing, and out of this realisation I posit to you that Oxenfree, an unassuming, deceptively cutesy-looking indie game, is in fact a fable, a modern Greek tragedy. There is a point to which I must accept that Oxenfree is just a video game, but its inspiring narrative and the intriguing, incessant foibles of its main character are justification enough that I had to wonder out loud. If you haven't played Oxenfree, then I urge you to do so. Just be sure to bring along a healthy dose of patience and suspension of disbelief. And once you've completed the game, I have a question for you. Is leave possible?
Clarissa, what are you—
All the Oxenfree. All the Oxenfree. All the Oxenfree.
Oxenfree.